Welcome, Mr. Mayor. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. President. Thank you, and to you, the members of the board. Thank you for taking up this issue before this honorable board. We are all unified against the reality of casinos coming to this Commonwealth, which I believe is the worst decision this Commonwealth's ever made, to think of desperate economic development. That is it. I want to give you an update where the city stands right now and where I envision us in the next couple of months moving forward, and how I would ask the board to work side by side along with the public on this matter. I wish I could predict and tell you where a casino may happen. Nobody can, but I will tell you that the Wynn Everett casino proposal is probably at worst a 50-50 bet for them. And if you had to give odds, I think they're slightly ahead of Boston, since they have a host agreement, a local vote approving, and they are moving at a rapid pace to do Chapter 91 and MEPA approval at once, which is taking, sparing no expense and running at a rapid pace. Now, at the end of the day, this will come before the Mass Gaming Commission. They'll decide where a proposed casino in the Boston region will be. The other one you may have heard in public was Milford. I do not believe, from what we see and what we read, that Milford is anywhere near this. That could change. So, taking the most conservative approach, I have a strong concern, as we should all have, that it could end up being about 200 yards away from where we've invested with the state and federal government $130 million of public tax money to unlock the potential of Assembly Square and, Mr. President, your Honor's good Alderman Sullivan, our neighborhood in this city. We are taking a very proactive approach, and let me explain what we've done so far. First, you are about to get a communication from me, Mr. President of the board, asking you to appoint a member of this board to meet with members of the administration and eventually stakeholders in the public at a regular standing meeting beginning, I'm sorry, but we're just finalizing things, beginning tomorrow. So, and it'll be 10 a.m. on Friday, so we can internally work what is a very rapid evolution of this process. Currently, the applicants for the casino, the Wynn Everett Casino, are in the ENF stage of the MEPA process. We are, as we speak, finalizing the city's comments to that process, including our comments on water use and quality, transportation, environmental remediation, and economic development. At the same time, they'll then have to go for a Chapter 91 license, but in these meetings and with the board, and where appropriate in executive session, we'll talk about the city's legal posture and opportunities to take action on the matter. At the same time, I will tell you that we are looking at opportunities. I want to say opportunities, the reality that this may have to be a dual track approach. I will do everything in my power, along with you and the public, to fight a casino being near this community. I do not want to pretend or give you the impression that that may not happen. That, I will tell you, be concerned, may very well happen. So whatever our abilities are on the current legislation as a potentially a quote-unquote surrounding community, as it is called the legislation, what mitigation may be available to us, we need to consider and do our due diligence and give that information out to the public, as well as our potential legal standing to fight whatever casino proposal might be before our board is here. I think we need to do a dual track. And this will be part of those conversations, and we'll work with the board. I will also tell you, in terms of disseminating information to the public, we will be proposing a series of public meetings and hearings. For instance, what are our community's rights under this state legislation as a quote-unquote surrounding community, if and when we are designated? What are the issues, other avenues for the public to speak out in terms of environmental relief that the proposal will need? And I will work with this honorable board to make that happen. That timeline, which is why I would like a representative of this board, meeting with the team we're putting together, will be discussed here and proposed back to the public. So I will end with this. I don't know what's going to happen. I have a deep and grave concern. I hosted, when I was president of the Mass Mayors Association several years ago, a casino panel of experts here in the city of Somerville with mayors from around the state. There were 3 members. 2 were pro-casino experts, and 1 was an anti-casino expert. But what they agreed upon, this one thing: if you do bring casinos to Massachusetts, you do not bring them to where you have an economic base. The region where you have an economic base. Quote unquote, they said unanimously, you don't bring it to Boston, you don't bring it to Salem. I think if this happens in the urban core, it will not only have grave economic impacts around this region and potential impacts to Assembly Square, which is why our partner, Assembly Square Federal Realty Investment Trust, is front and center with us in opposition. There are going to be a lot of sad, personal stories. And I think we all understand what happens here. You've talked about it eloquently at the last meeting. Who's susceptible, preyed upon, to living paycheck by paycheck and being in that casino. So for all the reasons you talked about in the previous meetings and we've spoken about publicly, we're working feverishly on this. I'll ask verbally now that the president please appoint a member, a representative to meet with us right now, Fridays at 10 a.m. Those meetings are not open to the public this time. We will share that information. When necessary, we will go into executive session regarding our legal standing. We will roll out to the public a series of public information meetings of what this means potentially to the city of Somerville, what our rights are as a potential surrounding community as outlined in the state legislation, and then what other area the public can have an impact in terms of comment, legal standing on environmental issues and so forth. Mr. President, with that, I'll take any questions you may have of the board.
Mr. Mayor, is it tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.?
Please, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. in the mayor's office.
I'll be appointing myself, so I'll be there bright and early.
I will have your coffee ready.
Thank you, Alderman Houston.
Wow, you make coffee for the president?
I do.
Wow.
After all, he is
What are
the
you doing
president.
for that?
Actually, Omar makes the coffee.
Oh, all right, now we have it straight. I'm sorry. First of all, I want to, through you, Mr. President, I want to thank the mayor for coming here and informing us about, you know, how the administration can work with the Board of Aldermen to address this issue. But through you, just a question about if it comes about that this does happen in Everett, and I'm not familiar with the statute, but is there something there that would alleviate our issues, mitigate our problems, compensate us in some way, or will we have to advocate for that more aggressively, or is there something sitting there in that statute we could tap into?
Through the president, to the good member of the board, in reading the statute, from what we understand, we believe that we are you're either a host community that hosts the entity of a casino, or you are a surrounding community. That's the definition that is impacted. The proponent, in this case, entities would designate us, could either designate us as a surrounding community, which I believe they would. Maybe they won't if they believe we'll oppose. Or we would petition the Mass Gaming Commission to be designated a surrounding community. I believe very confidently that we be a surrounding community and we can show those impacts. So then the question is, well, can you mitigate the impacts? So in short, in some cases, yes, but some impacts cannot be mitigated. So in terms of where traffic mitigation and infrastructure improvements have to be made, well, that's easy to say. You need to make an investment to alleviate congestions or traffic queues or bring in a transportation infrastructure improvement. But, and you should know, for full disclosure, we have been contacted by representatives of WEN. We have expressed our concern. We have told them what our plans are in Assembly Square, not to mention the different quality of life issues we have regarding a casino being on our borders. If you ever watch the movie Casino, Robert De Niro, I'll summarize, and not word for word, says, our goal is to get you in, keep you there, spend your money. How do we really gauge the impact on the consumer who may not spend that dollar in Assembly Square or in East Broadway or in Union Square in parts of Somerville, but to what the impact of casinos are polarizes that spending in a casino area. This casino proposal will have a major retail component to it as well. The goal is to get that consumer into that resort, keep them there, spend their money. So so that's just one angle. So how do you mitigate that type of thing? I don't think it is an issue that can be mitigated. We don't know. Federal Realty Investment Trust, and I won't speak for them, but I can represent this because we have made them part of this discussion, and they will be part of these meetings because they understand they have to be front and center, has a grave concern about the investments we've all waited for as a community. You know, this is year 15 we fought for that a casino right on our borders would have. So in short, yes, there are some things I think you can point to. There's an impact here. You can spend money, you can relieve it. I think there are others you just cannot mitigate. But we'll pursue whatever we have to do given the realities we may be facing.
Thank you, Alderman LaFuente.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your presentation and for the work that you continue to do on this issue. I know that you feel very strongly about that. I think, as we all do on this board. But correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't the original dialogue in the state, wasn't it to put these casinos where economic activity was needed?
Through you, in general, I believe so, but they've designated 3 regions. There is, and in short, what we should be most concerned about is the Boston region. That extends as far as Milford, if they've gone to Milford, and some destination areas, but also what we should be most concerned about is the very inner urban core. So they're going to designate, you have proposals in Taunton as far, potentially, as far as ways the South Coast and as far west in that region, in Springfield and Palmer, but the Boston region, here, they devised this as 3 economic areas, if I'm not mistaken, and 1 slot parlor. If I'm not mistaken. You have, Mr. President, you could also, you have the potential of a casino in Everett and a slot parlor at Suffolk Downs. So
do you think that in litigation we may be able to use that as a way? No.
For you, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish. I didn't mean to interrupt.
But you know my question.
I know your question. We will present to this board in the appropriate setting what our legal rights would be in terms of opposition. I can say publicly and confidently, I don't believe anything on the economic level. I think publicly we should be advocating to the state. Have they really thought this through? Think about what's happening here. A community like Everett, whose peninsula comes through Somerville. And Mr. President, through you and Alderman, and you're our Alderman, so I'm going to tell you, Alderman Sullivan, we live in your ward, in case you don't remember. They get to vote on an impact that has a radial, broad, regional implication. The state, I mean, I've never seen something so bizarre. One community gets to vote on the regional impact. They didn't draw a radius like a 5 miles and say everyone in that radius or whatever it should be should have a vote on this. So, some of this is really bizarre how they thought they really didn't think this through. They did not really think this through. But there are variables they must consider in approving, who will have the host agreement. But in terms of any legal challenges, I want to tell you right now, we're on our own. We are on our own.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken first? Alderman Gewurz, then Alderman Conley.
Thank you, Mr. President, and through you to the Mayor. I'm very glad that you are taking action. I know you have been all along, and that you're going to be convening these meetings. I did want to corroborate what you're saying. I've written testimony about this, and I was just looking it up, and I noted that there was a 1999 National Gambling Impact Study, which was commissioned by the U.S. Congress, that documented all kinds of problems with casinos, increases in domestic violence and foreclosures in all the regions where casinos have been introduced. And the total cost of regional impacts they found and social services were not known. It's hard to know, but were estimated in the multi-millions. For people who live within a 50-mile radius of a casino, at least 1 out of every 20 becomes a gambling addict, leading to personal financial ruin, the breakup of families, domestic violence, and child neglect. And if that is not one of the worst ways to raise revenue for this Commonwealth, I can't think of a worse way. You know, we're going to say we are going to create attics in order to bring in money. These casinos are going to create attics, or the slot parlors, slot barns in some places. So people will go there, will become addicted, there's something that happens to people when they play these games, and it's been documented and studied as well. It's not about winning. It becomes about going into the zone, and they play and play, and that's how the machines are designed. They're designed so that people enter this zone and play until they have nothing left. And I think we need to do everything we can to keep this out of our communities' borders. One horrible thing about the way the law was crafted is that, let's say you're a homeowner whose house sits next door to the casino, but is on the town line and you don't live in that town. You don't get a vote. You don't get a say. And you are arguably the most impacted person. People in your neighborhood or your cul-de-sac or whatever it is, it's so strictly confined. And in Boston, it's only certain precincts or areas, I believe, that are allowed to vote. It's not even the whole city of Boston on a Boston casino or slot parlor. So some people in state government really wanted this to happen. You know, obviously our previous speaker before this, fought against it, so it's sort of seesawed, and then this particular speaker really wanted this. We need to be vigilant, and I think what we need to also do, I really like the idea of having community meetings and making sure people are engaged, but have a timeline and I'm curious if you've thought of this, Mr. Mayor, of by when we would have some kind of consensus report or some sort of thing that people can go to meetings with, that they can argue, why, here are the list of problems, here are the reasons why we're opposed to it, and here's the mitigation that, I know it's two tracks, right? So there's the one track that says, let's not let this happen right next door when we're the house on the border, basically. And the other track is saying, if it is gonna happen and we have no power to stop it, what are our list? And it should be long, of ways in which they're going to mitigate the problems and the trouble that's going to cause not just Somerville, but all the communities within a 50-mile radius of this casino. So a timeline, I guess, was the question, and has the mayor considered?
We've considered many things, and I think the purpose I'd submit to these meetings is to really take these comments. We welcome all the comments of the board and the public, and we'll consider them all, to put it out there, and we want to get as much information as possible. And, it's funny, not funny, it's unimaginable. There are things going on right now to make sure the casino happens. But the public has an opportunity to give comment, and they know nothing about it. Nothing about it. So we will put it all in the most succinct, clear, and transparent mechanism so people know how they can get engaged and be involved. They really need to be involved on this. It's a harsh reality right now we're looking at.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your detailed presentation. You mentioned we're sort of going it alone. I've read in some of the Medford community papers that they seem to be as obsessed about the problems that are going to be created in Medford. Has there been any discussion, or why'd you rule out the opportunity perhaps working with a Medford, a Malden, or other potentially impacted communities should this occur?
Through you, yes, we are working and seeking out other allies as part of this process, from even Boston community, of neighborhoods in Charlestown, for instance, and just advocates in the city, people like Bob Massey, who've spoken eloquently, written about this for years. We were seeking any ally and partner we can on the matter. So yes.
Mr. President, I think, Mr. Mayor, it's vital that we join forces with some of those surrounding communities, because I think there is some passion and zealousness in those communities as well, and anything we do to allied forces, and basically, I think, given the amount of money that seems to be behind the wind project, that there'll be certainly a lot of money spent trying to curtail any publicity or these kind of stories. So, can you get any idea what the Gaming Commission's timeline is on when a decision's to be made? Are we talking by the end of this year or within a year?
I'd be speculating for you. I would certainly expect within a year, but I can't give you exact timeline at this point. I know they were all racing to the finish line to have Their votes, host community agreements, host community votes, all their approvals and so forth, dual track, spending as much money as possible to say to the Game Commission, we're ready to go. And I have no doubt that we'd love to have communities like Somerville and surrounding communities on record saying, we've talked about it, even though we don't like it, we've mitigated, and we're happy with the mitigation package, here it is. I can't make that commitment to them. So within a year, I'd be speculating and say that's probably more accurate. By the end of the year, I don't see it, but I just don't know at this point. We're going to be moving at a rapid pace. We have been on this, but especially when people are getting back from vacation on Labor Day, having those public meetings, public information sessions, getting commentary, having working groups around the city on this matter.
Last question, Mr. President, to Mr. Mayor. How's the vote in Boston to occur? Now, I know the city of Everett voted citywide. Boston being a larger community, is a portion of Boston need to vote? Parts of East Boston, how's that going to work? Is that vote going to occur at any time in the future that you are aware of?
For you, we've had the same questions. I believe the Ward 6 Alderman's not incorrect that right now it's only certain neighborhoods, although you have a movement from the greater public and your city councils, which are almost all running for mayor of Boston, saying it should be a citywide vote. We think it should be a regional vote, but I don't disagree. It should be a citywide vote. So I'm not sure that's going to happen. If it were to happen, there's a lot of speculation that a host agreement may not be approved by the electorate. That remains to be seen, which only bodes our situation worse yet. However, let me just say something here. The impacts are still harmful to the city of Somerville if it is in Boston or Everett. It is greater, of course, 200 yards away, more impactful to us. Because through you, Mr. President, as the good Alderman of Ward 6 mentioned, she referenced to a study, a 1999 study. Yeah, they are that far-reaching on small independent business owners, on working families. It has a far reach. So we'll see what happens with Boston. We're hearing that they may have reached an agreement with the city that hasn't been publicized yet. We'll see if that's actually the case and whether it remains at a local vote at the East Boston District and Revere, which is all on board, or the entire city of Boston.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. I think it's very important, Mr. Mayor, that the folks appreciate what you've been doing on this and the impact in the city of Somerville. Because, I mean, some folks, and you hear the talk, well, Everett wants to do that, that's their business, if people want to go to a casino in Everett. But they have to realize the effect that this is going to have on Somerville and the long-range vision and investment we made in Assembly Square. And I hope folks who are listening on TV, we have reporters here, you know, focus on that as a very key point. Because what's going to happen, as you said, Mr. Mayor, you have Federal Realty. They made an investment. They want to bring in retail tenants as part of the smart growth, mixed-use development at Assembly Square. If you have a major casino located a hop and skip away, it's going to be captivating people from everywhere to go there. How many people are going to stop like at Assembly Square, and how is it going to affect the marketing of Federal Realty to get tenants, and also not only Federal Realty's property, but all the other stuff, like where the old movie theater is and things like that. People really have to realize that that is going to cannibalize a lot of what we've planned for, and you've been bringing that out, and I really hope that the press again and the folks watching this on TV, focus on that. That could really affect, our economic future.
Thank you, Mr. President. No, I agree, and I want us all to pay closer attention as a community. It is that important. It is that serious. I do want to say this. I have the highest respect for the mayor of Everett, who's a colleague of mine. I don't blame him. Knock him, we should criticize, for trying to improve his community in the peninsula of Everett, which is the filthiest, most contaminated area that is still leaching contaminants to the Mystic River. He's got no guidance or assistance from the state in that area. This is desperate economic development on the part of the state. I made it very clear. I'm a supporter of the governor's team, but I think this is a bad, bad decision. But no one's gone to the city of Everett, nor they did to us, and say, let us, that commuter rail stop that is going through this area, let us make that stop there. Let us help you clean it up and plan and bring infrastructure improvement. Everett is desperate for economic development. I don't agree with this approach, but I don't knock the community for their vote. What they've been told and what the impacts are, it tends to allure people to it. So like you said, Because there are a lot of people in Everett and their surrounding, when they look at the facts and the impacts, saying, what are we buying here? This is fool's gold at the end of the day. But I do understand the challenges they have, and I'd be the first to fight for them. They say what is happening 200 yards away in Assembly Square should happen in Everett as well, right across the river. But, you know, the state should be taking an active role in making that happen. Instead, you know, this is economic development by desperation. It's not going to work. It will not work.
What folks should do is come to Route 28 on a Friday at 5 o'clock now and see how it backs up all the way, you know, to Medford Street and Highland Ave now. If a casino were opened in Everett, that would be one of the main access routes, is through Route 28. What the heck is that going to do to traffic throughout the entire city of Somerville, but also Assembly Square, which is right on Route 28?
Right.
You know, we really, I think as a city, and again, I want folks, you know, who live here who may have different views about the morality of a casino, they also have to look at the economic impact and what it's going to do, you know, on this city.
And I just want to add something else, Mr. President. You mentioned, again, people get allured to this, but go to Mystic, Connecticut. Ask the people of Mystic, Connecticut, was Foxwoods good for them? Go to the downtown Detroit and ask it, did that solve, the casino solve the problems of Detroit? Or did it help anything in New Orleans? No, New Orleans had its own trajectory. Anywhere, I mean, I saw a casino between a prison, which was 50 yards away, and the banks of the river in Pennsylvania. I've never seen anything like it. Harris built a casino. Because it has that much power to bring people to it. They will drive there. They'll spend money there. And this whole notion that it's proposed that this casino will only attract Asian students or foreign students from South America and Asia and their parents are here. I got news for you. You said it for you. I know Alderman Sullivan and others said there's going to be some sad stories here. It's the working class man and woman in Chelsea, Everett, Somerville, Medford, Malden, and Boston. They're going to be there spending their paycheck by paycheck. It's going to happen.
They put in a major transit route. That's right. In the old days, you had Las Vegas. So if you wanted to go to Las Vegas, you had to make a special plan. You know, you had a few bucks, and you took a plane, and you spent whatever it was a week there, and folks came back. Now, in the backyard on major Boston, or if it's Everett, it's going to be on a major T-stop as well. And that's going to be bringing people throughout the whole greater Boston area. As you say, as Alderman Gewirtz said, you know, a certain percentage will become addicted gamblers, and they'll be spending a percentage or their whole paycheck. And even if folks aren't addicted, all those folks are getting the tea, and they're not going to go to Assembly Square. They'll go to Everett, and, you know, it's going to really cannibalize our potential economic growth. So, you know, I look forward to, you know, working with you on this committee.
It's going to be a fight. I look forward to fighting with you. Thank you.